How do lawyers get started with an email-focused assistant? How do we overcome the biggest personal mental roadblocks we have to handing off those reins? What's stopping you from doing this today? This week's episode is a little different than normal. It's episode 2 in our 3-episode series on outsourcing email. I took part in a panel discussion hosted by our friend Maddy Martin at Smith AI, focused on how to integrate a virtual email assistant. I'm joined by attorneys Jess Birkin and Tyson Mutrux. Our discussion gets to the heart of the unique challenges attorneys face with regards to email and communications in general. It's tough to let go of that control, but as we discussed in last week's episode, the benefits are tremendous. Our panel discusses how to ensure consistency with an assistant, how to find, train, and get started with your assistant, and even how to address confidentiality and security issues. I'm a fan of everyone involved here, and I think our discussion is very worthy of your time. Let's get to it. I'm John Strohmeyer, and this is the 5-Star Counsel Podcast. The market for legal services is shifting, and lawyers who don't adapt will be left behind. This podcast gives you a competitive edge in today's market by sharing the client service lessons you probably didn't learn in law school or in law practice. Let's start the show. Hey 5-Star listeners, before we start, I want to tell you about our amazing sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a virtual receptionist service for small businesses with a specialty in working with solo and small law firms. I signed up with them within weeks of starting my firm because they are affordable for even the smallest solo practice. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in Spanish or English, screen and schedule new leads, and can even take payments. And now they're answering calls 24 hours a day. So even when you're asleep, they're still working. Even beyond the phone, they've got live agents and chat bots ready to capture leads on your website, by text, and by Facebook Messenger. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front line so you can work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $70 a month for calls and $100 a month for chats. Smith AI is offering a free trial, and our podcast listeners get an extra $100 discount code with promo code 5STAR. That's FIVESTAR. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI.
Today's topic for this Smith AI Master Series webinar is email delegation 101, and basically how to get over yourself, the mental roadblocks, the systemic issues, and start delegating your inbox for better management of your time, of the work that's coming through, better alignment with deadlines and meeting those. And joining me here is a panel of experts. I am Maddy Martin. I am the VP of Marketing at Smith AI. We host this webinar series for our business owning and operating community so that we can share tips to help you run a better business, more profitable, more productive, more professional. And today's topic is right aligned with that. So let's start off with John Strohmeyer, and then we'll go to Tyson and Mutrux, and then to Jess Birkin for introductions, and then we'll get started. So John, take it away.
Sure. John Strohmeyer. I am the proprietor of Strohmeyer Law in Houston, Texas, where I guide my clients through the maze of estate planning, probate, and tax law to help them leave no unfinished business. I also host the 5-Star Counsel podcast, where I try every week to find the answer to the question, what would a law firm built by the founders of Disney, Four Seasons, and Amazon look like?
Pretty impressive. Go ahead, Tyson.
And I am Tyson Mutrux. I own Mutrux Firm Injury Lawyers. We have offices in St. Louis and Columbia, Missouri. I'm also the co-host of the Maximum Lawyer podcast. And my co-host is Jim Hacking. So I figured I better give Jim a plug as well.
Awesome. Love Jim. And Tyson, feel free to put your Facebook group for Maximum Lawyer in the chat. I think we're all a part of that. I love that Facebook group. It's a great resource that you can continue the conversation we're going to have here in there. Jess, over to you.
I'm Jess Birkin. I live and work in the beautiful Twin Cities of Minnesota, where it is unfortunately 50 degrees and not snowing. I own Birken Law Office, which is a law firm serving the nonprofit community. And my passion project is this little thing called Hack Your Practice. So if people want to be pen pals with me, you can go to hackyourpractice.lawyer and I'll send you an email every month.
started, and maybe this is a little unconventional to talk about email first from a mindset perspective, but we have a lot of functional tips and tricks for you, systems that you can build that we'll talk about over the next hour. But I really want to get started, John, with the mental aspect of this, because so often the roadblocks are not in our way, they're really in our minds. And getting to a place of comfort or even open-mindedness is really essential to even beginning to think about email delegation and doing it earnestly. So how do we overcome those primary mental roadblocks to getting started with email delegation? How do we even identify them in the first place?
I mean, I think the easy part of identifying it is, if you haven't thought about how to identify it, this is a problem you need to face, because you're just kind of covering up. For me, a lot of it came in the nobody can do this as perfectly and wonderfully as I could. And Jess is nodding along. That's exactly what I'm looking for. It is hard because we've been trained, 0 mistakes is our, minimum tolerance. And having somebody in your inbox who can help you deal with things, it's hard to let go of somebody's going to be in there and they're going to make mistakes, but it's the only way you can get some of your sanity back.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way it's ever, sorry, Jess, I think the best way it's ever been put to me is, like, you've got someone that answers your phones. Why wouldn't you have somebody answer your emails? I mean, it's really not that big of a leap once you actually start to think about it. It's a fairly simple leap. You just got to get over your own ego, honestly, with what John's talking about. Like there are better people at answering your phones. There are better people at responding to your emails and at least checking your emails. So just get over that.
Yeah, I think actually the biggest psychological hurdle is that lawyers, it doesn't even occur to them that they can do this, because they're so possessing it and owning it that it doesn't even occur to them. Like, I know, I'm in Tyson and Jim's Max Law Facebook group, and like I have seen people post about how they're dying from email overload, right? And they're just like upset, and like clients are so demanding and they're emailing me at all hours and this, that, and the other. And it hasn't even occurred to them that this is a thing they could delegate. So I think that is the biggest hurdle, is just actually becoming aware. And then you have to get over the hurdle of like, oh, I could never let that go. I couldn't possibly let somebody do that. But just knowing you could do this is step number one.
Right. I mean, the one thing that comes to me is looking at email the same way you look at like draft documents. You're not expecting the first-year associate to get you a perfect product. Sure, you want them to get that to you, and what, sub-in associate or junior partner, whatever it is. Most of the time I look at it as I'm looking for something that is conceptually 80% of the way there. And that 80% is kind of close enough for me to not have to do the 0 to 80%. I'm there for the final stretch to do, fit and finish little bits. And so on email delegation, a lot of it is make sure that when things come in, if somebody emails me, a referral source sends it, John, here is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They're looking to do some estate planning with you. It's just as good and, functionally the same if my email assistant goes back, hey, thanks for reaching out. Here's the link to get started. Schedule your first call. There, whether or not that came from me, clients ultimately aren't going to look and be like, oh my God, somebody didn't email me directly. But it gets back to a service aspect for me of we're speeding up the response, and that is better.
I mean, most of it's not even that, John. Most of it's just, if you look at your last 100 emails, I guarantee the people that don't have someone checking their email, it's mostly nonsense. It's mostly just nonsense and noise that you don't need to do anything with. It is just nonsense. The thing about the actual percentage of things you actually have to respond to, it's very small. So if you can get rid of all the other noise, you can focus on those things.
Yeah. And you can also help someone get rid of that noise, even for them to do less work, right? I mean, one of the very first things that I did is say, just unsubscribe me from all of these things. there's going to be questions where, do you want these 20 things unsubscribed because it looks like you open and read this or something? Like someone who's really attentive is going to ask you questions, and you're going to think to yourself, maybe, oh, this is a lot of work. Now I have more chores on my plate, and now I have to go through all these things and tell this person what I do and don't really want to read. And you know what? Yeah, there's a little bit of work up front, but that is the lowest hanging fruit, Tyson, by far. And 80% of all of those emails end up getting, at least if you're like me, cleared out, and then they don't come back. So then there's more time for that person or group of people to focus on the really important emails and getting to those quickly and responding. And to John, your point, one of the things that's sort of the lowest hanging fruit, and we can go into this maybe next, is responding quickly and drafting replies maybe at first to people who are not yet clients, because maybe there is less risk there, and a fast response that might not be perfect is acceptable, whereas when responding to a client, that's going to need more review and more polishing. So do you want to speak to that? Anyone?
I can take that, actually.
Jess, go.
Because somebody was listening to what John was saying, and they were internally bristling, being like, oh, I couldn't have a different person. They emailed me and I need to respond, and I couldn't possibly have an assistant who responds on my behalf. But it's the same as you have your calls answered. Do you call the cardiology clinic and the heart surgeon answers the phone? No. If you email them, do they email you back? No. So that's also another psychological hurdle that people have to get over, that like it is okay for somebody to respond other than you, and it is better to do it quickly. And then I'll let John take that and run with it, because that's the service.
Right, because I had gotten really good. I'm probably the newest person on this panel to delegating my inbox, so I'm still kind of dealing with and learning about it. I had gotten very, very good at Outlook email filtering rules, to where my inbox still only had 15 or so emails coming in a day. So I had done a lot by myself, and taking that next step, realizing having the human touch there to actually look at things, who isn't me, it just makes it that much better. I call it inertia, where I'm used to having so much email velocity coming at me that I'm still fighting is like, oh my gosh, I don't have to do all of this work anymore. It's mostly handled.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the other things that's coming up here, and Jess, you touched on this too, is, I'm always thinking about service when I'm in any conversation that involves John, obviously. But when we think about professionalism, like, what does it mean to be more professional? Does it mean that you're more in front of things, or does it mean that other people are in front of things for you, for your firm? Do they understand, and are they indoctrinated into like the method of your firm? And have you really provided, this came up before we even started, Tyson, training on what it means to give good service for the firm or for your business, what it means to sound like you're a member of this firm. And obviously, if they're going to be responding, some of that tone is going to creep in. But think about how much you're benefiting if you remove yourself, right? So someone's not thinking from the outset that they're always going to hear from the principal, from the partner, right? And what does that mean for you stepping back and having more breathing room in every interaction that follows?
Yeah, I want to add to that too, because I think part of what way that a lot of people think is like, okay, it's got to be me responding or the person I've assigned to check my email. That's not true at all. Like, and you're talking about, Maddy, kind of like training your clients. That's kind of what you're doing, is training them to do the things that you want them to do them. And so the person responding might be someone like your leads team, or it might be one of the case managers, or it might be someone else. And so getting that immediately to the person that can respond to it right away, it doesn't have to come from your email. It can be forwarded to another person in your firm, and that person can respond right away because they can provide that better service.
Yeah, let's talk about baby steps there. So, when we think about, I think, triage is the perfect trigger word for the next sort of, step in this talk, Tyson. Do you start off with triaging? I'm really interested to hear from each of you. Was that the first baby step that you took? And are you using your native email program, meaning an Outlook or a Gmail, or are you using a system that sits on top of that, like a front app or something more collaborative?
I guess I'll go first. I use Outlook. I've delegated access. Outlook has the ability to just say, you can come into my inbox. You have the option to send either as me or as themselves. And that's been helpful. We started when I first brought the assistants on board, which was, I think, March or April of this year. My inbox of read but non kind of processed emails was at 2,500. And so they started by just kind of going through, we set out the, here, go through what I have classified as the garbage email folder, which is different than junk. Go through that, kind of see what's in there, make sure you're checking the junk folder as well. And then I have a folder for everything where I'm a CC. Go through and start checking those. And again, it's taking the lowest risk emails and having them train there first instead of going right into the inbox. And I had them kind of go through and process, all right, look, you've got 100 emails from the paralegal. Those mostly don't involve anything that you need to deal with, but you can start seeing what those responses look like. You can see what the cadence is, what's the cadence coming from the ops manager, just seeing what this looks like. And then we're going to put these in different places. And most of them you can hit the archive button on. But as they started processing that down, that gave them a lot more context of what they were going to see.
Yeah, and I use Outlook and I delegate access to my assistant who's in, like, they're basically logged in as me in addition to their own inbox. And what Tyson's saying sounds great if you have a big staff. If you don't have a big staff, then you're SOL, right? And that's how I started out as a true solo. I brought on my wing woman, Megan, at 10 hours a week as an intern to start and put her in my inbox. And it was, just baby steps of basically, okay, we're going to check in periodically throughout the day and you're going to tell me what's going on in the email. And you think you can respond to this, you can unsubscribe me from that, paying the tuition, right? There's a lot of training up front, teaching them what is good, what is bad, how you would respond, and over time building up their stamina to basically know how to handle things without you. But for me, I live in the native Outlook and she flags everything that needs my attention. And then the only thing that I have to do is like deal with flagged email that's in my unprocessed inbox. I don't think there's any one right way and whatever. So one of the things that lawyers really seem to struggle with is we think we have to be perfect from the get. And it needs to be a total perfection, 100% solution, can't start until I've figured it all out. And that is just not how that works. I'm not dropping an F-bomb.
It might not be the first time, but then I have to set a different
Okay.
rating.
Effectiveness.
Yes.
That's
It is just not how that works. You're not going to be perfect at it. They're not going to be perfect at it. You're going to have version 1.1, 1.2, 2.0, 2.1. Like, this is a process that's always iterating and improving. And, then I hired a paralegal and part-time associate. And now what do? Well, now I have all this email that comes into my inbox. And I think Lauren or someone in the chat was like, do you use a shared inbox? Well, now I have to think about that because now I'm turning more like Tyson, where I'm like, this doesn't really work anymore. That it all comes into me. So just don't get stuck on, I have to have this all figured out. And once I figure it out, it's done forever. It's just not real.
I think that's a good segue, actually, just for me, for what I wanted to talk about, because I think the impulse is you want to jump right into your inbox and you want these people to start jumping into your inbox. I don't think that that's where you start. I guess to answer your other question, I use G Suite, or I guess it's Workplace, whatever they call it now. But so we use that, and I share the login with my person. But the way I started was with a list of rules. So I went through my inbox and said, okay, here's what I want to do with that type of email. Here's what I want to do with that type of an email. And we came up with a list of rules. And that list of rules has changed over time as as the firm has evolved a little bit, and then also how we want to manage certain emails. And so we created that list of rules, and it's awesome because the person that was managing my inbox, her father died or was sick and had to leave. So I had to replace her with someone, and I took the rules, gave them to the new person, and it's been fantastic. And ours is, when you're talking about triage, we use the similar system too, Maddy. We use a triage system where it's a bunch of checkboxes in G Suite. So for those of you that use Google, you can go through and actually check, okay, red check mark, green check mark, yellow check mark, and that's how we do it. And so if it's actually blue, I think it's blue, green, and red. So if it's blue, something I need to review, not urgent. If it's red, I need to review it, it's urgent. If it's green, it means I've reviewed it. So it's a pretty simple checkbox system. We also have some more advanced ones where if I needed to forward to someone else on my team, there's actually a check mark assigned to, it's not really a check mark, it's like a green question mark, but it's assigned to people on my team. I just click it for that person and then it just gets forwarded. So, and we have also a bunch of other rules based upon the rules that we've created, especially, and I'm sure Outlook can do this too, but with G Suite, you can create a bunch of rules. And I'll give you one. You're talking about unsubscribing, Maddy. Well, I've got a lot of friends that I've subscribed to their email newsletter, and they don't know this, but we create a rule where I didn't unsubscribe, but when it comes through my inbox, it's deleted automatically so that they don't know I unsubscribed from their email.
I want to talk about that actually specifically because it can be problematic if you have friends, as I also do, who send newsletters and you don't want to automatically set the same email that they use for their newsletters as their personal emails to you. And then you're in trouble and they're like, why are you not responding to my emails? It's like, oh, I didn't mean to send all of them to like mark as read and archive, right? Or read it later or read it this weekend or whatever my folder is going to say. I do have one that's like, basically when I get around to it, fun reading, right? And that's important because you want to filter then by the subject line and not the sender, right? So think about those rules really carefully if you're going to get yourself in trouble with just automatically sort of taking them out of your inbox.
Good idea.
Well,
that's a great idea.
To piggyback on the rules thing, don't underestimate how powerful the tools you already have that you already pay for. I see a lot of stuff in the chat that's like, use this and use that and sign up for this program. And it's like, yeah, that's great. And very tempting to try and learn a new tool and dig in and do a thing. But maybe just start with what you already have and you can figure out if you need a new tool, because the new tool is a great dopamine hit and like shiny, new, exciting thing. But like you can get really far with just the program you already are using.
Folders, right? And I will say this, Jess, I want to piggyback on that for a second. I have folders and they are prioritized and they are named under my like email assistant, right? And those are her folders basically, and she owns them. If she doesn't know what to do, she creates a Google sheet and she has little tabs. And the first tab is like, are these things normally urgent? And the second tab is like, can I unsubscribe you from these things? And the third tab is like, do you read these or not? Because I keep putting them in that folder and you haven't read them yet, right? So like constant refinements. And I have to say like that attitude, if someone is doing that, is also something I look for. But I want someone who's not just going to follow the rules, but who also proactively is going to say, it doesn't seem like the system is totally working well. Can we do this better? Or this is a huge chore for me. I think I can make this more efficient, and being open to that feedback too. It's not just top down.
I think it's a great idea or a great point, because if you've got someone that's managing your email inbox and they're just like you with your emails, then nothing's going to get done with it. You've got to, what we do is we meet regularly. We meet once a week to say, she'll be like, hey, guess what? You've not responded to this email or you've not done anything with it. Do you want me to go ahead and respond to it? And here's what I'm thinking about sending. So you've got to have that person's going to push you a little bit, not let it just dwindle in your inbox.
Yeah, I mean, I've got.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I mean, two of the rules I'm thinking about. One, we also meet at least once, sometimes twice a week, just to, hey, this is what's going on. The things that aren't necessarily in my calendar you should know about. But also, I've got a rule. If an email comes in, if I haven't responded to something, a response needs to go out from them with a link to Calendly. Give me one full business day to respond to it. And if I don't, if somebody emails me Monday afternoon, give me all day Tuesday, then Wednesday morning, hey, John's seen this. It's whatever, it may be faster if you jump on a quick call with him. And so they know, don't let these things just kind of linger. If I'm indisposed for some reason, they can still jump on the calendar, and like people are still getting responded to.
I like that. Yeah. I need to do that.
My
woman calls me on my bullshit, but that is a really great motivator. Like I would be like, oh God, they're going to get a call scheduled. I have to respond to my email.
Even a Slack message that also says like, I scheduled this person scheduled the call. Maybe they even can see into your calendar, right? Like, do they know if that call got scheduled, if there's no email back? One of the things that goes really well with email delegation is also Slack or a chat app. I mean, I prefer not to text with people on my team, but it's really nice when something goes into urgent. Let's say I'm in a webinar and then back-to-back meetings all throughout the day, and something is urgent. Well, when am I going to get to it? And what do I do first in my urgent inbox? It's really nice to get a Slack message that says like, as soon as you are available, I need you to look at this one email that really is most urgent of all, right? Because you might see 10 things in there, and how do you identify that?
And that is what I do as well. My assistant email person is because one of the things that's coming up for people is like, I can't possibly do this because what if there's an emergency? Because we all have high maintenance clients, because we're all helping people through horrible situations and they're all stressed out, right? So like you're going to get that email and you feel like you have to be in your email looking for those things. And that I found was the biggest mistake that I made when I first started delegating my email was I kept looking at my email. And then I would deprive Megan of her opportunity to triage stuff or deal with it because I was like, oh, well, I need to respond to this. So I'm in here and stop it. So I had to really train myself to stop being in the inbox all the time. So if you're a person who's got your inbox open on your desktop, first of all, you should just stop doing that because it's distracting you from doing your work on the Smith file or whatever. But you have to get out of there and let them actually do their job. And having a Slack message or Teams or whatever you're using for internal comms is critical so that you feel like they can reach you if there is something that you need to jump into your email for. 100%.
Totally. So, I mean, Jess, maybe we should talk about, I have a couple questions about going back to old habits and, making sure you're being consistent, and that's relevant. But before we get to that, one of the phrases that you use is, paying the tuition for your new assistant. What do you mean by that? And how can we benefit from understanding it?
Well, I'm just thinking about at Max LawCon, I was talking about this, which is how we got here. And Bill Umansky, the lawman, gotta love him, in the back of the room was like, I need to do this, but like, how do you do it so that you don't have to like spend all these hours training this person? And I was just like, you don't. Like, there's 100%. No way. You have to pay the tuition. You have to train the person. You have to put the time in to figure out what you want them to do. And they're not going to be good at it right away. And you're going to have to like build up the muscles for both of you on how to do it. And there's just no way to avoid that work. But the thing is, that's an investment that pays huge dividends. The second you are relieved of looking at your inbox all day is a great day. And it just gets better from there.
Yeah. 100%.
They can also be responsible for the documentation. And that's something that to me has been a big burden when I'm training people, is to give the training, write it all up myself, and then be a perfectionist. And that adds, 10 times the time of the original training. If you record your videos, if you put them somewhere where they can be referenced again, and if you ask them, I see that you've, figured out this triaging process. Can you write it up so that we have a reference for that? That can be a responsibility. And, are you willing to pay for that time? I mean, I certainly am, but that's a decision that you have to make. Paying for their time is something I'm much more willing to do than spend my own.
Yeah. Training a brand new baby paralegal, new to my practice, new to the world. I'm doing a lot of that right now, and it sucks. so hard, but you have to do it. And it's like, if you make good documentation, you essentially only have to do it the one time, right? And then you're just tweaking from there.
Yep. So, how do you ensure that this person and you are consistent here with delegation? I think a lot of us, at least from my perspective, I go back into bad habits of trying to do my own email inbox management. I'll start, opening up my browser, see the, messages that are in my inbox and just get sucked in, like, oh, this is something I want to look at, or I'm going to archive this. Like, this will only take me a second, and then 30 minutes later, right? So how do you sort of keep the reins on yourself and avoid going back to those old habits? Jess, I think you mentioned, not even having email open. Do you check on it a couple times a day? What are some other tips here?
Yeah, at this point, it's been going on for me so long that I'm like, clients really should not email me if they want me to look at something, because Megan is just managing that stuff. I think in the beginning, there was a lot of white knuckling it and relapsing and going back to bad habits and just forcing myself. One app that I've used in a variety of ways, and in this way, that's really great, and there's a desktop version and a mobile version, is called Freedom. And the logo doesn't make any sense. The name doesn't make any sense. It's like a butterfly on a green background. But the app basically helps you, if you do not have the self-control to stay out of your Outlook or your G Suite, you can use the Freedom app to block your access from any number of websites or applications on your laptop or your phone for a certain amount of time. So like, you can say, for the next 2 hours, do not let me open up Gmail, Facebook, Amazon, whatever your guilty pleasures are that distract you from your work. Don't let me use Outlook. You can actually basically babysit yourself with technology to help reinforce that. I think once you get in there and you start really feeling confident in the person, and that's can also be a psychological barrier. Like, should you be confident in the person, but you're just being a micromanaging control freak? That's on you. But once you develop some confidence, it's so much easier to just, then you're like, I don't want to look at my email because Megan's doing that and I don't have to. And it's wonderful.
Yeah, I use leech block on Firefox to keep me from going to certain websites during certain times of the bulk of the day. It keeps me off the websites I should not be on.
Leech block. That's a way better name. Good branding on them.
Oh, yeah.
I don't go to that extreme. I think a lot of this has to do with like your own self-control and just not doing it, just stop doing it. So I've got where I set check my calendar or check my email at 4 o'clock and at noon. So noon and 4 o'clock each day. And then what also keeps me in line is making sure that I've got that weekly meeting to go over emails. And then this is not, most people don't like doing this, but I have an autoresponder that most of you, if you've emailed me, you've got an autoresponder before. And what it does is it gives the people that email me other avenues of reaching out to the firm. So you could, I actually pulled mine up because I hadn't looked at it in a while. It tells them if you
pull it up and share my screen maybe, or if you can, that would be great.
Yeah. So if, well, how about this? Maddy, send me an email really quick and I'll send it to you, because I just want to make sure it's not an email that's got client information on it. So it just tells them, hey, you can, if you guys got my cell phone, reach me out on my cell phone. I'm not going to give it to you if you don't have it. You can email our operations manager, or you can call our office. There's also links and stuff.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So I check my email twice daily at noon and 4. If you're a client, judge, or lawyer, I will respond to your email as soon as possible. Due to deadlines, I'm unable to read or respond to most other email. Please don't be offended. If you genuinely need to reach me urgently, if it can wait a week, it's not urgent. Great definition there. Here are your options, basically. If you have something to sell, click here. I don't know what happens when you click that link.
Hey, go ahead and click on that, because I think we've changed it, but I want to see if it's still active.
Let's see what happens. Submit
Oh,
your
it's still it's got the old logo, it's got the old firm, but yeah, we don't use that one anymore. But to
Yeah.
be completely honest with you, if you fill this out, I don't see it ever. It's just it's basically just get rid of them is what it's for. So yeah.
Because you don't even get to like put in what you want to talk about in that form. It's just your contact information, and then you're going to be sent another form, right? So, and then you're linking to the YouTube channel, and then we've already mentioned the Maximum Lawyer podcast, and then obviously your signature, right? So this is something I saw you do years ago, and I've actually mentioned it in other webinars that I've done because it's a great example of like, how do you set expectations really effectively? How do you cover your bases? And how do you make sure that people are aligned on the definitions? Like the most important one, which is what is actually urgent, because people will use that to their own advantage if you let them.
I'm going to be controversial on this and say this is a dick move, Tyson.
And some people think it is, and that's fine. I will tell you this. This isn't my original idea. This is a Tim Ferriss idea that I've adapted and adjusted. Yeah, exactly. So not anything really talking about original, right? This is all stuff that we've stolen from other people, which is fine. Yeah.
All right. How often do you get pushback, Tyson, on that? How many people give you feedback, like Jess just did, on that email, whether it's verbally or in response to that or whatever?
Well, it's funny. So I've had a couple of friends kind of give me, tease me a little bit about it. I've had one attorney, just one, actually say, I don't think that that's professional. And I told her, I said, a lot of people like it. So what are you going to do? But I've had several, way more attorneys say, I love it. I'm doing the same thing.
Well, sure, because they should be delegating their inbox, probably.
Very, very true. Very true. But I will tell you this, it gives, especially clients will email. They'll email Candace, or they'll call the office and say, hey, I know Tyson's not available. Can I ask you about this? It's really, really helpful about filtering that stuff out. And it lets them know, like especially like an attorney might email me and they think that they can dictate my calendar, right? They think that they can email me right now and they deserve that they're entitled to an email back today. Well, guess what? You're freaking not. That's where I would drop an F-bomb, actually, Jess, but I decided not to. Like, you're not entitled to a response from me, okay? I don't care. You are not. I don't care who you are unless you're a client. If you're a client, you are entitled to a response from me, okay? But no one else, unless you're my wife, is entitled to a response from me. You're just not. I will respond to you when I can. And I'm very nice and everything whenever in my email. Most of you that know me, I'm not a jerk. But like, just because you email me and just because you email someone else does not mean you're entitled to a response. I'm sorry, you're not. You're just not. So that's my philosophy.
Okay, couple of things. For Tyson, first of all, just you have a lot going on because you got Max Law and you got a whole bunch of other, so there's some things there. And then you're in like a litigation practice area. So I think that's a little different. For me, and I think probably John, you'll relate to this as well. I'm not in a litigation area. I don't have opposing counsel hounding me all the time. I do have needy clients, but for me to have an autoresponder that says, hi, I'm busy. Your problem, it may not be important. I'll get back to you when I feel like it. They don't care. I just don't respond. I like, yes, if somebody emails me and I don't owe them a response, then they're not going to get it. If they're a client and they are owed a response, they're going to get it from me or from Megan. I don't need to tell them I'm going to tell them. So I think for you, because you have multiple businesses and a litigation focused practice, and you got a lot of obnoxious insurance defense counsel in your inbox and all of that, you can probably get away with it more. But I just think for a lot of boundary setting can be done without beating people over that.
Well, and I will say this: know your audience.
Lawyers, which you are.
Yeah.
Know your audience.
Know your audience, and that's the thing. It's a great point that you make. Like you got to know your audience, and I know that my people are okay with it. And by the way, that first line kind of tells you like who's most important to me, because like it tells a judge, it feeds the judge's ego. Hey, I'm going to get back to you. It tells the client, hey, I'm going to get back to you. Right? So it does kind of feed those egos if they need to be fed a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
there is the
it's
interim that John mentioned, right? Where, you have someone respond. You don't have an autoresponder. You have a human, basically autoresponder that's like, I'm going to go through and respond to all these and just set them on the right path if I can, or tell them, hang on, John's seen this, but he's not going to get back to you till the end of the week because your deadline is in January and we're here December 2nd, right?
right. Yeah. And everybody's going to have their own particular answer to this. We're putting it, the kind of email, how you work with us, of this is what you should expect. When clients reach out the first time, it's like, here, the rules of the road, this is how we're going to respond. The best thing to do is jump on a call with me because that'll be faster and easier. I will also be prepared for you. And just making sure they know, here's the link kind of going forward as a client, how you're going to get in touch with me. For me, I don't get a lot of emails from judges or even court staff at this point. So that's not as big of a deal, but it is the clients who, again, like Jess, my clients want to hear from me. The sharp edge of an autoresponder wouldn't work too well.
Personally, I don't think it was too sharp of an edge, but I see exactly what you mean. And everyone has different sensitivity levels. So, it's also, are you working with new clients all the time, or are you working, with about the same group of people over longer periods of time? That also might affect people's comfort level in getting an email back like that from you. Like I've emailed Tyson now for years, and I always know I'm going to see something like that. For if you have a really high volume, short, time period practice, that might affect you in a different way. So let's talk more about how to find this wonderful human being or multiple people who can help you with all these triaging and response duties. Jess, where did you find Megan? And John and Tyson, I would love to know from you as well, where you found these people and how you prospected sort of for them.
Unfortunately, I found Megan through methods that can't be repeated.
She stole Megan. She stole Megan.
No.
She grew Megan out of an incubator.
She was a tiny chick. I went to grad school. I have a master's in nonprofit management, and I went to grad school with a woman whose cousin was graduating from college and wanted to do informational interviews with people about the nonprofit sector. And I did an informational interview with her, basically talked her out of going to grad school for no good reason, and was like, hey, do you want to be my intern? Because you seem really great. It just was happenstance, essentially. But I was looking for interns at that time. Like, I wanted to pay somebody 10 hours a week.
Okay, but you already made a good point, which is, do you know the type of person and those character traits, those qualities that they exhibit when you encounter them in the wild or wherever? I hired my first marketing assistant at Smith AI because I was riding a bus going from one venue to another for a music concert in town, and she sat near me and she mentioned she works at a law firm. We started talking. I was like, sounds like you would be a really great person to hire. And she's like, I'm actually looking. There you go. 3 years down the road, right? So being open to any opportunity and maybe not necessarily fitting your mold. You can't teach people to be good, kind, considerate, articulate. There's a lot of things that will be very challenging to teach, and a lot of things that are very easy to teach. So seizing the opportunity is definitely relevant.
Also, for what it's worth, I've only ever had one law student that was worth a shit. I don't know what everybody else's experience has been.
Open up your channels of opportunity. Right.
Yeah.
Tyson, John, what do you think?
Yeah, so I found both of mine through Upwork.com. I hire a bunch of people through Upwork, so I know a lot of people have problems with Upwork. I find it to be a wonderful resource.
And Freelancer.
Yeah, yep. They're both great. So I love Upwork, and the main reason why I hired both of them is because they both expressed that they wanted to be basically an extension of me. They understood that email is very personal, right? Even though I've got my very impersonal autoresponder, Jess, it is a very intimate thing sometimes, right? So You might get emails from your bank, right? You might get emails from an angry client. Might get emails from a family member. So it is can be a somewhat intimate thing. So they both expect to express an understanding of that. So I think that's important. It's not their inbox, right? It's not their inbox. It is your inbox. So they've got to understand that. And so, yeah, that's why. And my second one, she was actually someone I hired as my personal assistant, and she said, "Hey, I think I could take this over," and that's why we end up using her for the email inbox now. But that's why I chose those people.
Yeah, I use Upwork too, Tyson, and I've had a lot of success with hiring, writers and researchers over like the last decade. And I also really appreciate that you can have them either submit their time, or they can do a screen share while they're working, and you can literally watch them work. So if your comfort level is, on the lower end, that might be good for you to see, well, how are they interacting with the system I've given them? Are they doing things that, I want them to do? Are they really working all the time that they say they're working? Again, because they're not going to be as efficient as you are right out of the gate. You might find they're putting in more hours than you expected, and things like that are helpful just for your own peace of mind up front. I don't require that. I don't watch my team work anymore, but that can be a helpful tool that Upwork provides to you for free, along with making billing super easy.
So I guess that leaves me. I have an outsourced company that I've handed my inbox off to. And so I've got 2 dedicated people who are there to watch my inbox. I don't have to worry about hiring and firing with them. If there is transition there, they've got the rules written down for me in a Google Doc where I can see it, kind of go in and manage what those rules look like. And we're constantly adding and tweaking to those rules. So I look at it as, it is a way for me to have outsourced it. How did I find them? I asked a friend who was using them, and enjoy the fact that my friend Cassie was using them and liked them. That was good enough for me.
Definitely. Are you willing to share what service that is, John?
Yeah. It is Virtually Brooks. And if you give me a second, I will pull up here my loud clacky keyboard.
I'm guilty of that myself.
All right. Nope. That's not what I wanted you to do. Link.
Tyson, I bet for you and I, it's so taken for granted that this is the way we do things. Do you remember when you first started doing this, and what change that brought for you as a firm owner?
Yeah, because I just remember, you were kind of talking about, and you made me think about whenever I was wanting to jump back into my inbox, I just kept wanting to and I was like, I don't have to do that. And then I remember the first time we hit inbox 0, I was like, oh my gosh, this is I was like, I didn't think this would ever happen. I just didn't think it would ever happen. And when you get to 0 email, when you see 0 on your email, it's incredible. It's such a great feeling. What about you?
Yeah, I just keep thinking about the amount of stress that it alleviates. And I talk to a lot of people in my job and in the whatever, I'm an extrovert. And especially right now, people are maximally stressed about just life and everything. And the relief that getting this off of your plate brings, I can't even fathom going back to drinking out of the end of the fire hose and trying to triage all of my email, because I am so drained right now already that if you're not doing this, it's just going to improve your lawyer life so much. I can't express that enough.
Yeah, and when I remember when we were at Max LawCon just a month and a half ago, Jen and Harmony, the 2 wonderful people who are taking care of my inbox, they had rules. If there's an emergency, text me, which was great. It's like, I don't even have to be thinking about it unless I get a text from them. Don't bother. And the text was really, if there's an emergency and you need to get on the phone with somebody, and not just hey, this person's asking for a call. It's, if you don't hear from us, that is fine.
Yeah.
and just the relief. Like, oh, I get to, go and pay attention to things. I don't need to open up my email or fiddle with something, watch cat videos or do anything else. I can pay attention and learn.
It's something that, sorry, Jess, you made me think of something, John, where I remember I would go on a vacation or I would try a jury trial. And so I'd be gone for a week and I would be terrified to open my inbox. I would be so afraid to open my inbox. And I would get to the point where I'd ignore it for a week. I'd ignore it for 2 weeks. I'd ignore it for 3 weeks. And then finally I'd kind of skim through, okay, what do I need to look at? And it was very stressful. And now honestly, I don't even care. I'll leave it. I'm like, I'll be gone for a week. It doesn't matter. I can not check it for 3 weeks. And if it's something truly urgent, they'll let me know.
And that's like the freedom in your mind that comes from that. I can go to spend 3 days at Max Law. I can go to Tech Show. I can go to my friends turning 50 and we're going to Belize for a week. Like, I don't have to worry about that. And one of the things that I brought up in my talk was the more stuff you can delegate away, especially if you're small, your firm can't survive without you. That's a huge problem. Like, people may or may not know, I don't really tweet about it, but I sometimes mention it, that I got this massive concussion this spring. And then I got into a car accident. I got rear-ended. And yes, I have a PI lawyer, Tyson. And
I was going to ask.
Right. Yeah. And Ryan McKean set me up with a referral here in Minnesota. It was great. So
very nice.
Props to Ryan. But I haven't been able to work a whole day since June. Like, my brain cannot do it. I can't look at a screen. I cognitively have problems. And if I didn't have my calls answered by Smith, my email delegated, all this automations with Zapier and all these things that I'm doing and systems, I would be dead in the water. My firm would be dead in the water because I was the only lawyer until very recently. So you need to also think about it, put your risk manager hat on, which I know speaks to us as lawyers, right? That this is really a way for you to preserve the integrity of your business and like build something that allows you to take care of a sick parent or have a broken leg or whatever it is. And that's so key for firm owners.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say, we're looking for the lowest risk things to take off your plate. I've had Smith answering my phones since I started. Why? Answering the day-to-day calls is not something I should be doing. And you kind of progress up that way instead of starting with, here, how can I delegate the most expensive stuff? That's the biggest risk. You want to delegate the stuff that is the lowest risk first, and then you can kind of progress up. And, we've gotten comfortable with that level of delegation. We go and do the next thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I think in terms of risk, there are some things to be mindful of that are more, they are literally confidential. Are you asking the assistant to sign an NDA? What sort of protocols do you have in place for monitoring? And, if you are, an attorney, as many of the attendees are here, you do have a responsibility, obviously, to, be in tune with and access to the work that's being done at your firm. So what do you do to take those steps to protect yourself and your firm?
I don't have them sign an NDA. I don't have employees signing an NDA, and I don't see any reason to do that. There are built-in protections with Upwork. That's why I'm less concerned about it, because you get a lot more information with Upwork than you would get with like a regular job candidate. Like you can see, they have ratings, like they've got star ratings. You can see how, punctual they are. It's got all these different ratings from other customers. And so I'm very comfortable with it. And I can also see exactly what they're doing, like what you were talking about, Maddy. So there are screenshots of the work that they're doing. So I'm really not that concerned. I mean, it's obviously a concern that it's got to be on, in your mind at some point, but I'm not that concerned about it when it comes to security, just because I know I do have that ability to check in on them.
I think, I'm sure there's ethics rule number, whatever, point, whatever, that says we're supposed to supervise and adequately train our people. And so, of course, you have to explain that My email is often confidential client communication, and we need to, have the folks that are delegating access, understand that. And it's like, this is not something you screen cap and like send to your friends or post on Twitter or something like that, obviously. But there's always like one person in the chat for any CLE that I do that talks about tech in any way that's like, but what about security of the data and the internet and whatever? And it's all of the tools you're using are at least minimally secure enough for a business person. It's fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it.
I mean, email is already no more secure than a postcard. So
right.
That's very true. Right. And also it's on you to train and make sure that, this person is doing the work that you expect them to do. You can't just set them off on that path and never check in with them. But we actually do require an NDA, but Smith AI is a tech company, VC backed, et cetera, et cetera. So, we're a bit more rigid with things, but Upwork does have a really solid set of rules when you hire people through them, which is to your benefit. That makes it a little bit lighter. And, there are things that you can start off with before you get to this point. So you feel like you trust them, and then your concern is significantly minimized, right? Like the people who actually, the woman who manages my inbox did years of work for me, actually, with researching and following my instructions with other light duty tasks. So then I feel like, okay, this is the next step in our relationship. That was just how I ended up approaching it. It's not how I think you have to wait years to get someone in your inbox. But there are things that, they might have access. Do they pay bills for you, right? Like that might be a question. Are you branching out now from email delegation and inbox management into other administrative tasks that might take you, into areas where there's greater access to sensitive information? Like a member of my team, not the person who manages email, has access to, my company credit card, right? That person may see invoices, but they don't see financial information.
Yeah, I actually do. I think I have employees sign some sort of confidentiality provision in their handbook, and contractors also. It's like, you may have access to our confidential information, blah, blah, blah. But you can do a lot with like screening, whether you use G Suite or Dropbox or Box or whatever. You can control access. You can use the technology tools you have to sort of like create little walled gardens for your people. Tyson, somebody is asking in the chat whether your Upwork people are independent contractors. I'm assuming they are.
I'm sorry, I was reading the chat box.
There's no such thing as a W-2 through Upwork, right? They're all
that is correct.
Gig economy that is correct. Contractors. Yeah.
Exactly. That's correct. I got to resend my message, I guess. So sorry, I was reading the chat box, but that is correct. So all of ours are they're just contractors through Upwork, and so I don't have to send them a W-2 or anything.
One really nice thing that you may not know is that you can actually bring a freelancer onto Upwork if you like their tools and platform and their, the ability to manage people's work and their invoices. So that's something that we have done. And then you also don't have to worry, because Upwork has very strict rules that if you take someone off of their platform and you give them a full-time job, you actually owe Upwork quite a bit of money. So if you bring people onto the platform, they're considered yours basically and dedicated to you. Whereas if you want to take someone out, that's something that you might need to consider. So as we wrap up for the next 3 minutes, maybe there's one key takeaway, and sorry to give you a pop quiz, but one key takeaway that you would like to leave the audience with. We can just start with the same order that we went in the beginning. John, Tyson, Jess.
Key takeaway: you're not going to start at the top of this. You've just got to start with baby steps. So you just have to get going.
Great.
I like it. I mean, mine's fairly simple. I already talked about it. Create a list of rules. Like, go through your inbox, go through your last 100 emails, and just create a rule each time, and just put it on a Google Doc. That's something you can share with your VA, and then just keep adding to it as things go along. It's going to make your life real easy.
Totally. Jess?
John stole mine, so let's see. I would say starting, but then don't get trapped in the like it has to be perfect. And if you start feeling like, oh, I can't because, or oh, I can't because this, and oh, I can't because that, that's it. I want you to reach out to me or John or Tyson or somebody that's already doing this and say, I'm having this, I'm feeling stuck. Help me walk through this. John and I have done that for each other. It's just, you just need to reach out to a friend when you feel stuck. That's my tip.
Awesome. I love it. Panelists, John, Tyson, Jess, thank you so much. This was really informative, and I'm glad that we got to get into the weeds a little bit and really share some examples. Very, very helpful. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else did as well. So look forward to seeing you all again soon, and take care, everyone. Thanks again.
So much for listening. You can find more info on us and get your free white paper on client service at 5starcouncil.com. You can get in touch with me at john@5starcouncil.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found and leave us a review wherever you can.